Hey, this is Matt once again. What about the video of the paid request this time for Chad? Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, reviews, re-reviews, what have you, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for Air America from 1990, which is a film I've seen a few times and was never big on, but always thought it was okay. And watch it again, I still feel that way. Like, how do I put it? And stop saying like. Like. If I give a 5-star rating on this, I would give it maybe 3 out of 5 stars at best. Because it's not a bad film. I don't think it's as bad as critics made it out to be back in the day. But I just see why it's not considered a classic or anything. It's directed by Roger Spottiswoode, who did Tomorrow Never Dies, which is a very good James Bond film. He did Terror Train back in the day with Jamie Lee Curtis, Turner and Hooch with Tom Hanks, Stop Where My Mind Will Shoot with Sylvester Stallone. I think he did The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger. But yeah, this came out in 1990, and it stars Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr. Now, Mel Gibson was a huge star at this point because Lethal Weapon came out. Even Tequila's Sunrise did pretty well at the box office, and that's a film I could never get into. But yeah, that is a film that was a hit, but no one ever talks about that movie. When was the last time someone ever mentioned Tequila's Sunrise? But that was a box office hit. So, at Lethal Weapon 2 in 89, so Mel Gibson was riding high on box office, and this is a film that did not do that well. It made like 30 million or so. Like, it didn't do a whole lot. And then Robert Downey Jr., before this, other than Less Than Zero, he had been in comedies like Weird Science. But he seemed like an up-and-coming guy. And those two worked fairly well together, Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr. The film doesn't have them together as much as you would think, and I think that's one of the big problems with the film is they should have been together much more. And the story of the film takes place in 1969 in Laos during the Vietnam conflict, and Robert Downey Jr. is his traffic report pilot, and he gets suspended because this dumbass with a semi's in the middle of the road watching, and Robert Downey Jr. talked shit to him, as the guy deserved. But because it was on the radio and there was cussing, he gets suspended. Well, quickly after, the CIA guy comes up to him and says, hey, we got a job for you, and hey, don't worry, there's no war going on there. There is in Vietnam, but there's nothing going on in Laos, and we want you as a pilot to deliver supplies. Relief supplies, things of that nature. We need pilots. So of course he gets there and realizes, no, there's a bit more dangers than happens to be told to him before. And there's drug operations, transporting opium to fund the CIA operations. I mean, it's ironic because Air America, the first time I ever heard that term was in Lethal Weapon, where Tom Atkins is talking to Danny Glover and talking about Air America. So it's ironic that the first time I hear that term, which was a thing that did happen, that was happening back in the day, but again, I heard that term in the movie was in Lethal Weapon, and then of course Mel Gibson would do. And Lorenzo Lamas did a TV show in like the late 90s, but it had nothing to do with this movie. But he did a TV show that was short-lived, also called Air America. Now, I will say the cast is interesting because the supporting cast, like Mel Gibson is the pilot that's been there for a while, along with the others, and he kind of given the job to put Robert Downey Jr. under his wing. Other pilots, you have Tim Thomerson, always great to see him in there, from the Trancers films and Doll Man, and he was in this film I love called Uncommon Valor. Always love to see Tim Thomerson in there. Art LaFleur, may he rest in peace, he's in it as another pilot, superstitious pilot. He was the dad in the Blob remake, Ribbed, and from 1988. I think he was also in some of the transfer movies, at least the first couple, I believe. Art LaFleur is one of those guys, you see his face, you go, I recognize him. He was in Death Warrant with Jean-Claude Van Damme as really bad guard, prison guard. Always great to see him in there. Lane Smith, he's there as a senator that's been brought in to see what's going on, and at first he seems very buffoonish, but he seems to gather a bit more what's going on. Lane Smith, I remember him as the dad and the son-in-law with Pauly Shore. He was also Perry White, in Lois and Clark, the Superman show with Dean Cain. So it was great to see some recognizable people in there. Some people say Mel Gibson is sleepwalking through it. I don't think he's sleepwalking through it. It might not be as much of a exceptional performance compared to Martin Riggs and The Road Warrior or other movies, but I thought he does fine. Like I said, when he works with Downey Jr., that's when a bit of the sparks come alive. The film needed a lot more of that, though. Just like the bit when they make Downey Jr. fly, and Mel Gibson's in the back with coloring books with Tim Thomerson. And they're arguing, no, don't color out the lines. You used the wrong color this time. No. So Mel Gibson and Tim Thomerson are arguing. I mean, Martin Riggs and Jack Death, are arguing with each other. And Robert Downey Jr., they're making him fly through the storm and the rain. The film needed a lot more of humor and situations like that, because it's labeled as a comedy, and I don't think it's as funny as it could have been. And there are times where it has this shifting tone, where it's a buddy comedy, but then it tries to be a little bit of an action film, but then it tries to be very political and what was going on with the CIA. And I don't think it combined all that effectively. Because as an action film, there's a couple decent explosions. There's a bit where Downey Jr. and Art LaFleur have to land the plane and the wing crashes into something. Decent explosion. There's a decent explosion at the end of the film. But it's not a whole lot of action. If you're an action junkie and wanting to see a lot of action, you're not getting that in this. It's not laugh out loud funny in terms of whether trying to go for maybe black comedy or trying to go... Like, remember the movie MASH? Trying to do comedy with the Vietnam conflict. And of course, that later had a very famous TV show. It's not as biting in its humor. It's not as satiric as maybe it could have been. And it doesn't work tremendously as an action film. It's kind of this thing that kind of sits in the middle. And the two stars are helping try to propel this thing, as well as the supporting cast, to the finish line. Because I would say, whether it be the story, whether it be the script, kind of is not as good as the two main stars. And the little bits of quirkiness, again, the bits of when they're doing the coloring books, or Art LaFleur has this miniature golf course and he has a silenced pistol shooting at things. Or this general, he wants a Holiday Inn. I almost kind of wish the movie was even crazier and quirkier and more insane on that front. But then I'll be brought down to, okay, the senator's looking for drugs and this opium and who's doing it, and then this one character dies and that's pretty sad, so it's like we're having fun and this is sad. I think a movie that did that combination a bit better was Good Morning Vietnam. Or to be honest, I wish they kind of went the other way. And the movie I kept thinking of that I do think was better was 50-50 with Peter Weller and Robert Hayes, where it's two guys, buddy movie, action, comedy, a bit of seriousness because these people are in trouble and that they go help them. But that film really was satisfying the action department. was consistent with the comedy, was a bit more consistent in its tone, and because it was had a bit of a canon film flavor in the back, as canon films released that, it kind of knew a bit more what it was and went with it. And sadly, that's a film that doesn't even have a Blu-ray 50/50. But I think that's a fun, underrated action comedy. I that's a film that seemed like, because they're working with the CIA. I think it was the CIA. I forget which organization. That felt, again, more consistent and more fun and more entertaining compared to this movie. And this movie, I wish was a bit more like that 50/50 movie. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of times where Downey Jr. and Mel Gibson get to work together. And Downey Jr., he has a bit of that exuberance, and it's interesting to watch him here in this compared to, still fun, but a little bit more serious in Iron Man films and things of that nature. Always liked him as an actor. There's a point where Downey crashes, rescued by Mel Gibson in his chopper, but then the chopper goes down. And, like, the moments that work, and they show this in the trailer, so maybe people saw it, expected more of this. One of the favorite bits is when they're upside down in the helicopter. You go first. No, you go first. We'll flip a coin. Hey, what was that? Was that head or was that tails? You know what? Let me check it out. And then Mel Gibson dives forward. When you see it in the trailer, I think people thought more of the movie was going to be like that. Whether it be either sillier or more fun or more comedic or more of that nature. But I said it kind of, I don't know if this Roger Spottiswoode was the right director for that. I don't think he's right for comedy. Because I don't hate Step on My Mom Will Shoot as other people do. I can watch that film, but it's not my favorite Stallone film by far. I can still have fun, but I think Oscar is a funnier Stallone comedy. I still think it's better than Rhinestone, but like Step on My Mom Will Shoot, kind of like this, where I would give maybe 3 out of 5 stars at most, where they kind of, I just don't think this director does comedy the best. Like, even Turner or Hooch I don't mind, but I prefer Canine more with Belushi. It seems like action he's a bit more comfortable with. Tomorrow Never Dies, among others. Like, even The Sixth Day I thought was an okay Arnold film. And I really like Terror Train, but he's not a premier director. He's a competent director. And maybe he had someone that had a bit more of a biting sense of humor, or a bit more of a, I don't know who you would get to direct this. Maybe a John McTiernan or someone to that effect. Like I said, these shifting tones don't make it as good as it could be, is what I'm getting at. But super spoilers, like I said, Downey Jr. crashes twice in one day. They going through the jungle, him and Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson is able to talk some rebels out of not shooting them by saying, hey, you got crappy weapons, I can get you better weapons. When they get back, Art LaFleur is killed off screen. Robert Downey Jr. decides to blow up this drug lab, but it doesn't matter because they just started back up the next day. I try to remember how the guys knew it was Robert Downey Jr. Or if they did know. I'm trying to remember. There might be something. I can't remember. There might have been a clue that was dropped or found. Pretty much they decided to frame Robert Downey Jr. Though, yeah, okay, Senator, you want drugs? We'll give you drugs. this guy's doing it. And they're going to blame Robert Downey Jr. on it. So that plane crashes. Mel Gibson comes by to help him out. But then, almost out of the blue, oh, by the way, these people are in trouble, and Nancy Travis from 3 Men and a Baby, 3 Men and a Little Lady, other stuff, she needs help. And Downey's like, hey, we could help her, but, okay, fine, you don't want to help her. I get it. You're that type of guy. Pisses off Mel Gibson. He lands. Nancy Travis goes, I can't go without all these people. And there's like 50, 60, 70 people. So Mel Gibson has to get all his weapons that he wanted to sell to retire. They get all the weapons out. He throws a grenade or 2 or 3 or 4. Runs. Nice explosion. They fly away. That's kind of the end of the movie. And it's like, okay. This ending almost... We're introduced to Nancy Travis earlier, but then we forget about her. Like, she doesn't play... She only appears like once or twice more until the end. I just say at least they didn't try to force a love story in there. There's another movie they would have forced a love story between Nancy Travis and Downey Jr. or something, but I think she only appears like 2 more times until the ending, so that's why it almost felt kind of out of the blue. And then I read up that apparently there was a different ending. So I read that months later they had to go back and shoot a new ending. I don't know what the original ending was. So I guess that's why it made sense for me to say this does feel a bit out of the blue. Like an ending to kind of a different movie. And yeah, I don't know what the original ending was. But yeah, I think for a lot of people... Yeah, some people going in wanting an action film. Mel Gibson to fight, punch, kick. The Road Warrior, Martin Riggs. None of that was happening. He flies. That's pretty much it. Okay, it's a buddy movie, but they're not on screen together as much as you think. Which is a shame because when they are, they do work rather well together. I wish they could have done another movie together where they worked more in tune with each other. And had more screen time together. And on a side note, I like Mel Gibson. He fucked up. He was drunk. He said stupid stuff that is not right. But the guy has apologized time and time and time and time and time and again. He's drawn blood from the stone. I'm sitting there going, what more can the guy do? The guy's apologized when you asked him to apologize. He's been ostracized for over a decade now. What more can the guy do? He was drunk. He had an alcohol problem. Doesn't excuse what he said, but it is what happened. He's apologized. I do think he means the apology. Maybe I'm just being... What's the word I'm looking for? Too much of an innocent on that. Simple-minded on that. Maybe I'm being easily fooled by that. I mean, even Danny Glover and Whoopi Goldberg are telling people, no, I don't think he's racist. So, yeah, Mel Gibson fucked up. He said some anti-Semitic remarks during that drunken haze of phase. He apologized, and it wasn't right for him to say that. But I would say, for some people, I think there will just never be any type of forgiveness. That's their choice. I can't tell them what to do. I'm just saying I still like Mel Gibson. I think he fucked up, and he said things he was not supposed to do and supposed to say. And there are people that have done a lot worse in Hollywood that got away with it. Like, let's be honest with that. Just saying. That's not to, again, what Mel Gibson did was wrong. Drunk or not. But what more can he do? Mea culpa, mea culpa. Yeah. I'm willing to forgive him, but at the same time, I'm not Jewish. So I guess that's up to a Jewish person how they feel about it. I don't know if anyone out there is Jewish. You let me know on how you feel about Mel Gibson. Maybe there's stuff I don't know, and I'm willing to read it in the comments. Let me know. But the way I think right now, I think Mel Gibson is the guy just never going to be forgiven for fucking up and acting like an asshole at a part of his life. Robert Downey Jr., he is fucked up. Granted, I don't think he said any racist things, though. But, he did some crazy stuff when he was on drugs. And he was able to be forgiven. I don't know, it is what it is. What can I say? At the end of the day, Air America, its 2 stars help it quite a bit. There's a decent enough budget where you get some pretty good, more than all right, pretty good explosions. But for some people, it might not have as much action as you think it would, or it's not as fun as you think it would be. And so it's at least a time waster. It's nothing that you have to be mad or upset. Like I said, the supporting cast, some of the quirky moments, the 2 stars, they helped that quite a bit. The direction is competent, but nothing crazy or mind-boggling about it. The music is there, but nothing that remarkable. Some of the musical pieces is stuff you would hear in the 60s, bit of Rolling Stones. I think it was a Gimme Shelter. I think at the end, come fly with me, come fly away. I think that's the song that ends the film. You think? Yeah, I mean, I saw it 2 days ago, and that's the thing. It's not as awful as critics made it out to be, but it's not one of Mel Gibson's classics. Like, I would say Ransom, even Conspiracy Theory, Lethal Weapon films, The Road Warrior, Braveheart. The guy's definitely done better. Has he done worse? Sure, but has he done better? Oh, yes. And like I said, the film didn't do much business, and I can't be that surprised. It did make me want to go back and rewatch 50-50 with Peter Will and Robert Hayes. I know that's a weird comparison, but it just popped in my head as I was watching this. So, with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.